Right, good afternoon, everybody, from Dan's Haunted Cottage. I'm just sitting here, pretty bored. It's raining outside. It's been a dismal day. I haven't really been able to get much done apart from sorting out a couple of my sheds. And that's been it, really. So it's been quite a boring day. The kids are out at their friend's party. Hazel's taken them. So that's good. Got a bit of peace, bit of time. So I'd like to tell you a story. Now, this is a zoo tale. And I hope you enjoy it. I think it's quite a good one, but we'll see what you guys think. Now, this happened quite a few years ago. I was a lot younger then and a lot fitter and a lot thinner. And I was in charge of, I'm not going to tell you who the zoo is because that would give it away and I don't want to be done for liable. But I was in charge of the wolf section. I was head of wolves. So I dealt with all the wolf education. I dealt with not sitting wolves down and giving them lessons. I used to teach the public about the plight of wolves and about every aspect of wolves. And I remember it was a bank holiday Monday and I'd got in early. I always got in early to the zoo because I wanted to get ahead of the game, because when you're a zookeeper, irrespective of what people think, it's a blinking hard job, like a lot of jobs are. But it's not just sort of mucking around playing with animals and having loads of fun, although it is lots of fun. There's lots and lots of hard work to be put into it as well. So I wanted to get ahead of the game, so I got in early, and we generally opened on a weekend. No, not weekend. We opened generally during the week at about sort of, I don't know, 8:30, 8:45, and we were still sort of doing our jobs by that point. There was so much work, and then just after that we would go to breakfast. So anyway, come about, I don't know, 9:30, 9:45, a member of the public strolls up to the feed room door. Now the feed room is where we prepared all the feeds and the food and the medicines, medications and that for the animals in our care. And she said, "Have you guys got a wolf missing?" And I just sort of shrugged it off. And one of the keepers looked at me a bit concerned, and I said, "Don't worry, it's fine. It's probably just, once the lady'd gone, it's probably just a German Shepherd or a Malamute or Siberian Husky. She's just mistaken a dog. She's got a grainy view of a dog and assumed that it was a wolf when, in all honesty, it probably wasn't." How wrong it turned out to be for me. So I sort of shrugged it off, carried on preparing feeds, medications for the animals, and getting ready for the day ahead. Because on a bank holiday it was super, super busy. And so there I was preparing, and it came over the radio that another or a couple of members of the public had also been over to see the directors of the zoo straight in and said, "Have you got a wolf missing?" So by this point, alarm bells started to ring, because I thought, okay, one person, yeah, I can understand that, but if two or three say that they've sighted a wolf, the chances are that it could possibly be. So I just dropped everything, ran up to the wolf enclosure, and to make sure that they were there, because I thought, well, if one's got out, then it's not going to be long before the other two follow suit. Well, I had a bit of a head count, which didn't take long because there were only 3 wolves in the enclosure at the time. So I was quite happy and content that all of my wolves were safe. But I did know of another person who lived near my zoo. I'm not going to tell you who he is, but he was very, very rich. I mean, like ridiculously rich, an absolute fortune this guy had. To give you an example, he had his own private collection of wild animals. He had a leopard. He had wolves, or a wolf at the time, but then he got some more later on. He's alligators, venomous snakes, things like cobras and mambas and stuff like that. I mean, this guy had lots and lots of wildlife that he'd owned, but he also had like a great big barn. It was, and his house was probably, I don't know, 300-400 years old, and it came with this massive old barn. And what he did is he converted the barn into 2 parts. One was like a Ferrari museum where he had he had about 7 or 8 Ferraris, and some of them were on plimps and that, so they were quite rare, some of them. And he also had a Harley Davidson museum. So, we're talking serious money with this guy, but incredibly tight. At the time, I used to also run something called, Well, when he give you an idea, when he used to go away on holiday, I used to step in and I'd look after his animals for him in his absence. And I never ever asked him for anything. I didn't want anything, you know. I just enjoyed looking after the animals, and I wanted to make sure they were all happy, content, and looked after properly. I still certainly didn't want anybody going in there that was going to get injured or do injury to them, more importantly, as I could see it. So I used to look after them, but I always used to try and nudge him up for a few quid, not for me, but for a charity that I used to run at the time called Wolf Awareness. And Wolf Awareness was a charity that I started and I used to run, and it involved me going around and giving lectures on wolves and raising funds for the Carpathian Large Carnivore Project, which was going at the time. I don't think it's not going anymore. And I used to send the money across, and they used to use it in education. They'd use it for tracking equipment. They'd use it for a whole lots and lots of things. So anyway, I thought that's got to be his wolf. It's not ours. He's the only guy that I know that's got around here that's got a wolf, unless somebody's keeping one illegally, and I can't see that happening. And I thought, oh well, nothing I can do. So I left it, and I was content and happy that my wolves were safe. Went back into the feed room, prepared to make the feeds and prepare the medications for the animals. And then over the radio, I heard our manager. Now, our manager was somebody I didn't really particularly get on with at the time. I mean, we rubbed along quite badly, to be honest. We didn't really care much for each other. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't really matter what the reasons were. But he was one to hold grudges against people. For whatever reason, I don't know. And even if it meant cutting his nose off to spite his face, he would do that purely and simply so that he didn't give credit or help to somebody that he wasn't happy with or didn't particularly like. Me, really. And some others, but me in particular, because I used to argue with him. Me and a friend of mine used to argue with him continually. Because he came from a background where he didn't work with animals. He was just purely and simply a manager, and he'd stepped into the manager role at the zoo, and he wasn't right for the position. Anyway, neither here nor there. So I heard him over the radio, and then I heard the director of the zoo talking to him, and then I heard the manager say, yeah, the police have arrived, they're all here now. And he was talking to the police, and the director was talking to the manager, talking to the police, and you could hear the relay over the radio that he was trying to give information to the police, but he had no information to give. So the director got me on the radio and said, look, Danny, this person's wolf has escaped. It's got away. Could you give the police any information on tracking it, finding it, what to look for and where to look? So I said, yeah, fine. Now, at this point, the police had said to this manager, so you've got a guy who knows lots about wolves in this zoo, who's a wolf keeper, but why am I talking to you? Why am I not talking to him? Anyway, it was a bit of a blow in the face for him. So eventually I was called out by him, and I went out to see the police. And when I went out through the gates, there was the police. They had one road sort of cordoned off. They had armed response there, which I think is SO19. I don't know who it is. They also had normal police officers there, and they kind of opened the boot of the car, and there was all sorts of hardware in it, rifles and what have you. And so they kind of really meant business. They really wanted to stop this wolf from doing any damage. Not that it really would have. But obviously they've got to take precautions. So I explained to this officer, this guy, this SO19 chap, that the thing to look for would be to look for an area where there was high ground and there was water, and that's probably where the wolf would be heading for. And it transpires that there was a golf course near to where my zoo was that met those requirements. There was water, and it was set on high ground, or sort of part of it was on high ground. And apparently there'd been a couple of sightings come through at that point that's where the wolf was. So I was then dispatched in just this normal police car with this young PC, and we shot from the zoo straight over to where the wolf. I mean, this went on for hours and hours. kind of, I'm condensing it as much as I can. So anyway, we went out to this golf course. We had a little look on the way. We were keeping our eyes peeled to see if we could see or hear anything. And we got to the golf course, and a couple of the golfers that were there had seen what they believed, or they thought they believed, was a wolf. So we knew that we were in the right area. So that kind of really paid off. That was good. So we got in the right area. Now, by this time, the armed response unit had turned up, and we were walking through this kind of thicket, these bushes on the course. And there was one officer he said to me, "Look, is this wolf dangerous? Is this wolf going to cause a problem?" And I said, "Well, that wolf is not as dangerous as you are at the moment, because you're pointing that rifle directly at my leg," for which he apologised. So I said, "No, it should be fine. It should be fine." So it's don't run away with the idea that this is going to tear you apart. You'll be perfectly safe. You'll be fine, I'm sure. So the helicopter, they dispatched a helicopter, and the helicopter had come over to get an aerial view of the golf course and look down and see if they could spot the wolf. And they'd spotted it, so they relayed it back to the officer. "Look, we've seen the wolf." So I said, "Well, look, where is it?" And he explained. And I said, "If you can use a helicopter to come down a bit and draw the wolf back towards us, then what we can do is we can get the owner to go in, intervene, and see if he can try and get the wolf back. Save any whatever shots been fired or anything really. Save the poor animal being hurt." So they did this. They brought the helicopter down. They sort of, the wolf came close towards us. The owner had gone in, picked the wolf up, and taken it home. But before he'd taken it home, we'd all said our goodbyes, as it were, and the police had gone. The owner had picked me up, and I was friendly with the owner. And as we got round to his house, right on his gate, there was just tons and tons of press. There was everybody there, TV cameras, the lot, ITN, BBC. There were the local rags. There was also the sort of broadsheets, the Telegraph, the Times, that type of thing, the Guardian, and I know that for a fact. And there was also the sort of gutter press, as it were, the Sun and the Mirror and the Mail, that type of thing. And he said to me, "Oh, no, I can't believe that the press are on my door. Do me a favour, Danny, they can't see that wolf. Can you hide it?" It's a fully grown wolf, right? It's in this van, in the back of this little van, with its head looking over between us, thinking he's had a fun. He's had the biggest, funnest day he's ever had in his life. It's been free, it's done what it wanted to do, and now it was absolutely knackered and it just wanted to go home with him. And so this wolf's head's in between us, and I thought, "Why am I going to hide this wolf? It's a bloody great thing. What am I going to do?" So I had to kind of lean back and then push the wolf's head down, raise my elbow, put the wolf down like this, sit sort of in front of it. It was very awkward, and it even looked awkward from outside. They must have surely, anybody that saw us driving past, if they'd have glimpsed me, they'd have known exactly what we were doing. It wasn't surreptitious at all. So I'm trying to hide this wolf. I'm laying across it. I've got my arm like that. I've got my hand up like this, and this wolf's trying to get by to look. And I'm trying to, "No, you can't do that." So there's me and this wolf sort of having this little bit of a push you, pull me type of thing in this van. And eventually we got past the press. They didn't notice. Lord knows how they didn't notice. And he carried on, and then we dropped me outside of or just about 100 yards down from where my main gate to my zoo was. So as I went in, there was press there again. They wanted to interview me about what had happened. Eventually, I think I talked to a guy from the Mail. Yeah, it was the Daily Mail. And somebody from the Sun, I think it was. And yes, it was the Sun and the Mail. Yeah. And I cleared it with my owner. Cleared it with the owner of the zoo. And I gave them just a short interview as to what had happened, and sort of played it all down, really. And they were sort of happy with that. But the helicopter was flying around the zoo, and somebody had told the keepers, for whatever reason, "Oh, Danny's gone up in a helicopter to look for the wolf." Don't know where that had come from. Do not know where that had come from. Chinese whispers, I don't know. This is probably how it starts. So the zookeepers, bless them, every time the helicopter went around the zoo, they're waving up at it and thinking having a joy riding this helicopter when it could be further from the truth. So yeah, that was it really. So I mean, I hope you enjoyed that. It was just I'd totally forgotten about it, to be honest with you. How can I forget about something like that? But I did. I'd totally forgotten about it. As I said, it was quite a few years ago now. But that was one of my wolf tales, or zoo tales really. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that, and I will speak to you very, very soon. Take it easy, guys, and I will speak to you shortly. Bye now.